Okay, so things are not working. Okay, let's just make sure before we venture into anything that we want to do. Is it working? Yes. Okay, so it works. We're back to the digital wasteland. It works. So we got proof that Cubase 13 can do the routing that Cubase 13 could do. That is not very amusing because we kind of knew, but now I know for sure. And I had to reboot my computer because of some stuff that told me that I had to reboot my computer, to which I usually say no, but yeah, that's very creepy. It is. It is. Hey, Angus. Hey, Marco. Hey, everybody. We're here. It's set up. Okay. So today, I'm just taking it very slow, as you can see. We got some cool stuff to do, which is first, which it will be last, because I know I have your attention and I can talk about pretty much everything I want as long as the giveaway is on hold. But today we're going to draw the winner of the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2 that actually Focusrite is endorsing me with. So you'll get it from them. You remember probably in the video I had said that I was going to buy it anyway for you, but I don't have to because my good friends at Focusrite, they've been super supportive. They actually like my music, including probably the things that I've been doing just right now. And because of this, you shouldn't, you never know, right, whose fans you have in your music stuff. And they've been incredibly supportive, along with Novation, along with Adam Audio, Focusrite as well. And they're going to provide you with the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2 to whoever is going to win, okay? And we're going to draw a winner live. And then this is going to become a video. And so you'll be able to rewatch it. We're going to use a website that will draw one of the people from the video itself, the people who commented on it. And because of this, right, this is the best day for any kind of topic, because people are going to be 100% waiting for these and probably saying like, oh, well, this is very interesting, but they couldn't care less. Because what I'm going to push the threshold towards is we're going to take a look at Cubase 13 in terms of how I set things up and why it works for me, the way I've been using it for the past year and a half. Not exactly Cubase 13, because it's out for what? It's a week old or something. But Nuendo 12 and then 13 and then hopefully 14 very soon, okay? It works really well for scoring. I'm not the one who's just going to tell you that. And because there's tons of people that do it. But we're going to take a look at some things that I believe you should just get into as soon as you load Cubase rather than after. Okay. The second thing we're going to do, because this is quite cool, we're going to actually test some Akai DAC plugins. Can you believe that? And I mean, this is just today. I can push this stuff because it's giveaway announcement, winner announcement day. This is not stuff you want to do on a normally productive day, because people are going to say, like, who cares about DAWs and who cares about old 12-bit DACs? Well, believe it or not, a lot of people do care about the latter, especially because the Akai 950, for example, had a very, very, very specific kind of sound that a lot of people still love today. Well, probably we were saying in the future, people are going to use Nokia phones and just enjoy the converters that they had. But for now, it's Akai S, 950. And we got two plugins that I want to compare. Inphonics RX 950 and Acoustic Audio's A0. Okay, so it's another acoustic audio day. I know a lot of you love their plugins. I know a lot of my viewers are actually acousticians. It's not a word. I mean, it is a word. It's not a word for, maybe it's acousticans, acousticologies. I don't know. Acousticologists. Although this one sounds like some kind of exam you have to do from 40 years of age onwards. So I don't know if I want to use that one. Anyway, we should get going. I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe not. I have no idea. Do we want to get started? Do we not want to get started? I don't know. I wanted to load like my GoPro, but just to show you the pedals and stuff while I'm setting them up. But oh yes, it is turning on. All right, so we're going to do that as well, live. Because when I start up at 6 p.m., nobody's here. And when I start up later, nobody's there. But once I kind of stay in the stream for like an hour, people get in and just, open the door, look at it, and then come back, go away from it. Okay, so the good news is I have power. I should be able to set my GoPro here. What you just heard was, let me set these up. You just heard the bass station going through, just the bass station going through the Strymon Volante pedal. And this patch I saved over 0. I don't remember why I did this, but it's not a preset that it has, and it's kind of a nice sound that I like to noodle with. So I'm gonna set my GoPro. You take your time, just grab some water. I should too as well. And we'll try and set these off. Oh, so Plinity says, how often do you buy new gear, right? Gears I can't change. These are in here. They're broken and they need oil, but they're there. New gear, I've been buying it for quite a while. In the first years, I would occasionally buy a piece of gear a year. And it's probably from 2011 to 2020, I bought probably one piece of gear a year, just putting some money aside of studio work or the other stuff I'm doing for audio companies and things, and just getting one piece of gear that I liked. I think this has gone on probably up until 2020. And in 2020, I kind of stopped, but I probably went more to synthesizers, bass machines, pedals, that stuff. So I would say one piece of gear per year, solar year, is still something. But I don't buy equalizers, like studio equipment. I don't buy any longer. I think the last piece I bought was my Pass-EQ maybe, which should be 2018. So it's been quite a while since I've bought a piece of gear for the studio, okay? But in terms of synthesizers and pedals, I think the last thing I bought is like last year, the Prophet 12. So it's just moved from studio equipment to, do plugins count as gear? It depends. No, it doesn't. But tool plugins, it's been quite a while, I think, since I bought like something very consist, like, huge stuff. Like the first plugin bundle I bought was the Waves Studio Collection in 2008 or 7, end of 7, and it was humongously expensive. I think I paid $1,500 for the API, SSL, and Neve collection that Waves had probably just about put out. Now I very seldom buy plugins. Like it needs to be something very, 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 very specifically cool. I also work with a lot of companies, so I'm lucky enough to kind of, get the plugins that I work with. So I don't really need a lot of plugins any longer. It's been a while, actually. That's a good question. I have never thought about it that much. But I think even plugins, I bought so many anyway. So don't worry about it. I've put so much money anyway, even in software, that the question kind of hurts to answer to, honestly. But I keep saying all the time, use all the demo period you have. Make sure you're not buying on impulse, because even if it's $20, it's still a lot of money. It's a lot of money. So let me do it like this. All right. Okay. Do we want to try and see if that works? Let me go to multicam. It does. All right. Look at that. Right. It's unfortunately a little bit in the middle, so bear with me for a second while I'm adjusting these, because I don't want it to be canted upwards, downwards, like that. Right? All right. So I wanted to show you this. All right. Does it work? Yes. Is it functional? I wanted to show you this because if we're setting Cubase up, and I'm talking about pedals, I just hate that you're not seeing like what is going on the actual gear. And I think this is nice because we have my base station here. You see me talking, you see the DAW, and you see the gear. Now I have to really lock this stand up. Let me just set it. Because you know how it is, right? This stand is gonna go slowly down. In 1 hour, we're gonna touch like the bottom of it. So, what are we gonna do? I think because it's kind of easier and it's kind of faster and it's kind of smoother, I'm gonna start from Cubase just to show you that. How many of you here have used or use Cubase and are thinking about moving to 14? Because 14 has some massive improvements. Okay. So I would really like to kind of start over, right? Do we start over? Let me start over. So yes, I think I like this. Let me see where I am here. Let me drop this guy down. Not show desktop, this one. All right, so we go into our Cubase world here. Let me go like this, okay? So when you start Cubase up, the version 14, just exactly like all the others, have the news, which I'm not gonna let you see, but then we got projects, recent, recording, scoring, production, mastering, more. I usually never use this stuff, ever, okay? So this is gonna be more about what is necessary to do when we are getting into a new DAW, okay? Or a new version of an old DAW. There's some things you might be overlooking that are kind of necessary. And Cubase being complex, for sure, it's easy to kind of get lost. So I'm gonna give you a rundown of what I do to kind of make Cubase work for me in my setup, and along the way we're going to take a look at probably some elements that to me are super important. Maybe for you they weren't until I show you. So the very first portion of the screen that is going to be occupied by Cubase is just the hub. I usually do not use any function of the hub. I just load either a template or a recent. So there's an empty here. There's a test I've done today, hello world. And there's a console tape mixing template that has remained from my Cubase 12 tests. Imagine that. So here, I'm not going to use recent. If I start things up, I usually use empty. Okay. So I'm going to use empty and I'm going to go create. It's going to prompt for a location. And we're going to use Cubase projects, intro to Cubase. You know, it's a very professional name to give it. And Cubase starts up. Let me, I see a little bit of overshooting of this thing. Okay, am I there? Awesome, yes, I am. So it starts up quite, why is it? Because this is the other project. No, I don't want this. I just want this guy. So untitled, and this is completely new and empty. The way it starts usually might be exactly like this. You got maybe the left pane, and then you got your arrange, and then you got your mixer at the bottom, okay? The very first thing I like to do when I am into Cubase is just to set my studio setup. And I would recommend you do this, okay? So we're gonna take a look at it. It's in studio setup, okay? We bring it here, we can make this window bigger, and usually the first thing I'd like to do is go to your audio system. So this is gonna be a nice rundown in case you have never used Cubase or Nuendo whatsoever. That can be quite a quick startup. Let's call it that. You see your ASIO driver, that's the one I use. There's not a lot of stuff that we want to set, but maybe the precision I like to have in 64, and we will need to restart Cubase or Nuendo to do this. I like the processing precision to be 64-bit float, just because it's more bits, okay? 32-bit float, it's not bad, but we got the opportunity to go to 64, so we go there. Activate multiprocessing, I definitely want. ASIO guard, or as I call it, Asgard, but it's wrong, don't call it that way, it's ASIO guard. You can keep it on low, normal, or high. If we're using complicated, heavy setups and sessions, you might want to keep it at least on ASIO guard normal. Now, this introduces a secondary buffer in Cubase, and so for this reason, it just tends to add a little bit more latency, or just to work towards making Cubase more reliable rather than more responsive. I honestly don't quite feel a difference in just real-time responsiveness, so I usually keep it on, but you can keep it off and then go there. The Steinberg audio power scheme I don't need because I have my own power scheme in Windows, so that's something I don't need. This will make sure that you are not putting hard drives to sleep and you're utilizing the top of your performances available there. Hello there. Hello, Elysian Skyboy. Welcome to the stream. So the preload, the adjusting for record latency, I don't actually change, believe it or not. So it's just what it is. But the first thing I want to do is just keep the multiprocessing and go activate ASIO guard if you're using heavy plugins. We're using some acoustic audio plugin today, so I'm kind of thinking that would be the case. And then 64-bit float, okay? Then we go to the actual device that you're using. And here you can see that my Lynx Aurora USB is listed completely. And it's all of the inputs and all of the outputs. You can rename the channels if you want them to appear with a different name. That's kind of useful. And if it's externally clocked, you should check externally clock. In my case, I'm using an Antelope external clock, so it needs to be clocked externally and marked, okay? Now, the MIDI port setup is where tons of things will happen in my specific studio, because here I have really a ton of inputs and outputs that I need to make sure they work, right, to do that. So I don't have a note here, believe it or not, where I write or type down all of my devices' MIDI inputs and outputs, but you should do it. And I think I have a TXT somewhere. We're not going to do it. We're going to venture in just troubleshooting or doing things like that. So you see the Windows MIDI device here. It's just Windows MIDI. It's what the drivers are. And if you are on an Apple computer, this is going to probably say Core MIDI, Core Audio, Core whatever. It's just the driver that your operating system uses to interface from the hardware to the actual DAW. So it doesn't quite matter. It's all going to be, Windows MIDI. Then we got whether it's an input or an output, and it's all ins and outs. And we got the name. We can still rename how we want to see things. And then we have a visible or not, and whether or not we want this device to be considered an all MIDI inputs. Okay, so when you use something and you send it to all MIDI inputs, or you use all MIDI inputs to trigger something, if it's an all MIDI input, it's gonna be in that pool. Okay, sometimes I don't want to do that. There's just a few synths that I like to keep in all MIDI inputs because it's just the things I have close to me. But just so you know, make sure that if you want to use that function, it's split between the synths you want. So for example, the Aurora Virtual MIDI in is just to update or manage the driver in the Aurora or the firmware or stuff like that. So I don't want it visible. This is not an actual instrument. So trust me, doing this at the beginning of setting up Cubase or Nuendo for what matters is just gonna give you a lot more peace of mind. So the Bass Station 2, we want it visible. We'll keep it in all MIDI inputs. And then we got tons of just the ESI interface having 16 plus 16 variable in-outs. I'm gonna keep them all on. Aurora Virtual MIDI output, I also keep in active, and everything here is done. Used system timestamp for Windows MIDI input. I don't want to use Direct Music. I don't want to use WinRT MIDI. These are just general drivers Windows has. I don't care. Okay. MIDI remote, track quick links. This is all stuff you want to set later on. We don't care about that right now. System link, if you're using that, it's amazing. I'm not interested at the moment to use that, so I've rarely used it, so we're done. This is all for my studio setup, and probably for yours as well. You might have different ports, different setups, things, stuff like that. Once I'm done with this, I need to make sure that I can monitor what I have in this session, okay? So things are not gonna play, okay? And I'm gonna show you that I even have my Aurora remote control where I have my setups here checked. These two should be off and they were on. That's why I double checked it. So my sources are as such. You see 1516 is actually the outputs for my monitoring. So my monitoring device, the monitor controller, the dangerous music stuff is all connected to the output 1516 because that's the digital out that goes to the DA that then transforms it to analog and lets me hear things through my monitoring and speakers, power amps and speakers, because I have passive speakers. So we need to use 1516. And so once you're done here, everyone will think that if you put audio in here, things will work. And I guarantee you it won't. Because now that we've set our studio, we need to go to audio connections. Okay, I'm trying to keep these as streamlined as possible because you asked for it and I'm delivering. Sounds like a car dealership kind of vintage ad. Okay, so we're gonna erase these for a second, and we're gonna erase these for a second. Let me just restart things the way they are. Let me remove stream, remove monitor. Can I remove it? Yes, remove the inputs. All right, we got, I want to remove outputs as well. External effects, we remove these two. All right, external instruments, control room off. Okay, so when you start your audio connections after you've done the studio price, you will kind of see that there's nothing in here. So this is where we take our studio hardware and we connect it to things that Cubase can use in the session itself. And as you can see, it's completely empty. Everything is completely empty. So we gotta set these up. Yuki Live says, hello, today somebody can win a prize. And me too, probably. Yes. I'm doing the evil thing of doing the giveaway at the end. And it will also be a video for it. So if you really don't care about anything I'm saying here, you just want to know if you won, you can actually probably watch a video along the course of next week. So if you have to walk your dog, just, read a book to your daughter, whatever, you can do that. We're just talking about Cubase. The world isn't going to end, hopefully, until I'm done with the giveaway, But I am going to do it today. We finally reached over 5,000. I'm actually close to 5,100, and we're going to draw that. On top of that, I just want to tell you right off, I should just keep my mouth shut, but I will say it right now. For the 6,000 giveaway, I'm looking forward to give 3 prizes. Hopefully 1 piece of hardware again, a plugin, and a subscription to a very famous audio tutorials website in which I'm also featured. And I've been working with them for quite a while. So I want to do 3 prizes, and it's going to be a giveaway for 6,000 subscribers. Okay? So that's what it is. I just spilled the beans. Mindbogger, hello, welcome. Why do musicians mostly prefer vintage amps and pedals compared to their modern clones? Well, which is clowns? It's like it's a Freudian thing. What do you think those vintage gear have that puts them at par with this modern era if technology? Well, if you're asking me, I can tell you why they do like it and why there's a tendency to kind of think that vintage is better, and why it might not matter sometimes. Okay, in my opinion, a lot of the old era tube design stuff is just simple enough to deliver a good sound. Okay, so there's iconic tones behind myself. You can't really see here, but I have. Hey, look. Maybe you can see some from here. I have a Vox AC30. I have a Fender Champ. I have a small Washburn amp. I have a small Marshall combo, and I have an Ampeg bass amp. Okay, so there's a specific sound these things have that it's not because they're vintage. It's because they're just tube designs. I mean, they're not all of them, but for something like a Fender Champ 15 watts or 5 watts, it's just an amazing amp, and it just works, and it's probably gonna get you heavier sounds than a lot of the bigger things. The problem with vintage stuff is that, yes, we love it. Yes, it reminds us of Slash or, whatever, Alice in Chains or, awesome bands that used to really play those instruments. So there's a connection between what we know the amp does and the history the amp has, or the pedals. But now we come to the realism of things, and I can tell you that the problem with a lot of vintage amps is that if they're tube designed, they need a lot of volume, and a lot of people are unable to really drive the speakers in rooms that are gonna deliver that sound. So if you have, I don't have them anymore, but I had 1960A and 1960 vintage Marshall cabinets, a JCM 800, a 2210, a JCM 2203, an Angle Powerball 100 watts. They are amazing, but they're very specific use case. And you need to have a recording studio like I had in Berlin where I could crank the volume up. People would not bother. If you're working with music today, and you buy a vintage amp for gigging or practicing, I don't think you're doing yourself a ton of favors unless you're buying something that is like a Fender Champ that can break up easily, that, is still loud, but it's still kind of room oriented. If you get a Fender Twin, you're gonna completely remove the paint of your walls, because that thing, for example, like the Vox, are incredibly loud. To drive them nicely, you need volume. You can use a load box, but just a vintage amp and cabinet with the guitar, it's too much. People like them because there's a vintage vibe to them and there's a specific sound. But I guarantee you, there's new stuff out there that is just amazing. And it's convenient to use. So you got to know that you can use either, but you got to know where the pros are in each. If you have a recording studio and you're hunting for clients and you want people to know you have kind of a roster of gear, it's nice to have vintage amps and stuff that people usually don't have at home, because you're gonna have them pay for the hours in studio. If you're a gigging musician, maybe bringing your this happens for keyboards as well, Hammond organs. Behind me here is a Hammond, portable one manual keyboard, 61 keys, beautiful keyboard, sounds fantastic, very portable. Does it sound like a Hammond B3 or an A100? It doesn't. But is it easier to move around? Absolutely yes. So for as much as I would love to have a 122 B3, and stuff like that, real clavinet, a vintage Fender amp to connect just to it, it's not convenient. So I think what matters is to understand that there's a balance to the two. I can guarantee you in my specific case, there's modern stuff that sounds unbelievably good. So that's a short, long question to it. For example, I have a rat pedal, or I said that the other week, or a green. Why do I have issues remembering that pedal? Just the Ibanez. I'm gonna take it just because it's nice. Hold on. This tube screaming, right? This is the epitome of people need to have these. You don't need to have these. I just found a good deal. I like it. It's a TS9. Sounds great. Looks great. It's just a thing I wanted to have because I know I have a real one. But there's plugins. There's new pedals that sound just unbelievably good. And probably, to turn this thing on, I have to push it 300 million times. Maybe the new ones, they just work, So it doesn't quite matter. Don't worry. I mean, there's pros and cons in each, but mostly this is like my angle on it. So we were saying these audio connections part is completely empty. So what we need to do, as I said, is to fill it. The first thing I want to do here is go to my control room and enable what Cubase calls control room. Why do I want to have a control room? Because I want to set my monitors here along with headphones if you have any for controllers, and also the stream, okay? So what I want to do is I want to set an output that I'm just going to keep and I'm not going to use, maybe because we need it for the control room. So just bear in mind that sometimes it's necessary to just drive an output 1-2 that is not connected. Okay, and this is kind of the main problem with these many levels. We have a studio setup, which we've just done. We have audio connections, and we have a bus name, but then we have to connect it to the audio device. So the audio device and device port are what the hardware has. The bus name is what Cubase lets us see. Okay, that's why it's audio connections. It's audio devices and ports being connected to bus names. And it's called bus, but it's really channels that are going to be used in our virtual mixer. So I go to control room and I go add channel. And what I want to add here from all that I have is a monitor channel. And I'm going to call this monitor easily. It's a stereo version. Look at the many setups we have. We don't need anything but stereo. My two speakers, this one I know, are connected to the Aurora 15, 16. So now this is going to be monitor left. Okay. Why did I do the output 1-2 that is not connected? Because I could call these no output. I sometimes do that. I think in my template I did this. There's many reasons why Cubase in past versions, I don't want to say I know 14, maybe not, doesn't like to have a clean no outputs in the list session. So I usually keep a no output here, which as you can see is a main mix, and it goes to no ports. So we'll see afterwards how that works. James is here and says, hello James, how are you doing? What did I miss? I just started setting Cubase up from 0 to hero, but we're not to hero yet. I just opened it, completely empty, and I'm running the sort of like prep stage or checklist to get to fly this thing. You know, it's like a flight check before getting into the jet or something like it. And I completely reset the preferences, at least in terms of studio connections and stuff. I did the studio setup, and now I'm into audio connections. And I have just set up the control room. Or at least, no, I haven't. It's just partially set. Okay, so you haven't missed much, but because I had to reboot my computer, so that's okay. You know, it's live, we're chilling, it's all good. So once the control room monitor is set, we need to set your stream. This is something I do. This is also good if you have audio movers, if you have any kind of real-time stream with producers, other musicians, things like that. So what I do is I go right-click here, and all I need to do is add Q, and I'm going to call this stream. It's a stereo feed, LR, and I know in my hardware setup, this is 1314. So you see how I'm going here. 1516 is my monitoring channels, and I told you why. It's a digital channel clone of the analog 1516. So I'm not using the output of the Aurora, although it looks like I am. I'm actually cloning 1516 in a digital feed that goes to my Lavry D2A converter. From there, it goes to my Dangerous monitor. From the monitor, it goes to the MQ for headphones, and to the power amps, and to the speakers. So all Cubase needs to know is 1516. But if I don't put 1516, we're not going to hear anything. The other thing is 1314. I know that 1314 is from my patch bay straight into the audio cards, actually Focusrite Scarlett 2i2, that sends you the audio for this. Okay? Marco says, let's see if I go back to Cubase. You know, I can't. I will go to Nuendo 14 when it comes out. That's for sure. But, you know, it's solid. But I hope what I'm giving you here is kind of a get your feet wet and go, sort of like quick start. Because there's a lot of little things that I've done from 12, 13, and now 14 that have kind of built into kind of sort of muscle memory, okay? Especially if you're composing like I do or have synthesizers, pedals, stuff like that. So we don't use inputs for now. We don't use outputs. We go control room and we route the outputs here. Why don't we do it from outputs? Because outputs is not for monitoring tasks. Monitoring tasks like talkback, external inputs, cues, headphones, and monitors are all done in control room if you want to use control room, which I do. If you don't want to use control room because you're using a different software, then you disable control room and you use one of the outputs as a main mix, you send it to wherever you want, and the next thing in line that you want to use will be your monitoring. I don't do that because I'm streaming to you as well. I do a lot of video recording and I send stuff for streaming sometimes to people like students and things. So I need these to be on. Let's take a look at what happened now that we've done stream and monitor. Okay, here on the right pane is going to be a CR tab. Okay. James says, my initial experience is better than Studio One for my workflows. I've used Studio One a lot. You know that, right? 19 and 20, so 2019 and 20 have been 100% Studio One for me. Awesome. Also, it's how I got back to composing, end of 2019. I wanted something that was not Pro Tools because I just couldn't use Pro Tools visually as a composer. That's just me. I also think it's not just a great thing for composing. There's people who do use it, but I think this is better. Tons of things to just play with. And Studio One was amazing. But then I moved to Nuendo because the team I was working with had Nuendo. And so I got Nuendo and then 12 and 13. And then I got to Bitwig for some of the stuff. Works anyway. And it's been amazing for some specific projects I had to do because I had to have kind of a live thing. I'm still doing that stuff. Maybe next year I'll just put everything into one DAW. I don't know. You say it's great and I always avoided Cubase, but something has clicked this time. Same. I knew it was kind of my first teachers, piano teachers, had Cubase to record me and just let me hear how I had played stuff. So I would have plenty of reasons not to use Cubase Pro or any Cubase for that matter, just PTSD. But, I'm okay. Maybe internally I am not, but from the outside, it's all good. So this tab CR now has the two things we've created. It's got monitors and it's got stream, right? So once we go here to, this is kind of a little bit small, right? Okay, if we go to CR and then we go to the bottom, I hope you can see it. Yes, you can, because I'm very small. You see here at the bottom, this is one thing that is gonna get you a lot. The tabs are twofold, top, bottom, okay? And I apologize if I'm not the teacher that goes through every menu, every little thing, and just calls things the way they are in the manual. I've been the guy in high school who studies just a little bit and gets good grades, very good grades, I gotta say. And so this has discouraged me in my life to learn things by memory. Only when I played the piano as a kid was I completely 100% rationalizing and doing things by just mere mechanics sometimes, which I think is positive for piano playing. But as a person, I am not the guy who learns things by memory and goes to people and say, hello, today we're going to talk about customer service and why it is amazing that you treat people well. I'm not that person who writes things and remembers. So here I'm doing some sort of like quick startup, and you're just going to keep the bull by the horn because it's going to go fast. But there's, I think it's good advice. Just, it's going to be different. There's going to be plenty of people who go menu by menu. So you can follow me. I was saying there's two folds behavior of the tabs. You got VSTI, Media, CR, and Meter, and at the bottom you have main inserts. Now, I don't know you, but I've been missing sometimes the fact that at the bottom there are other tabs. This is why I have said these orange, you see this orange outline that goes around the tabs. A lot of the times in previous versions of Cubase, I have disregarded the highlight of this color tone, but never shall I again. In fact, I used to use obnoxious colors, you probably know that already, to mark where I am parking my mouse at, okay? In this case, I think I used the nice sort of like coyote brown, whatever, tan, gold, I don't know. That kind of looks okay, I would say. And it definitely highlights, okay? So we are into CR, but we're now into main. This is the tab that I want to take a look at with you. So here on top, we start off with stream. Here on the top, we have all of the cues that we've been using, but because we only have stream and monitor, we only see one cue, which is our stream. The stars are all cues. If we right click this window, audio connections, we can put it always on top, which is something I would recommend, because now that I click on the CR and the other tabs, the audio connections is going to stay here. So it kind of helps, if I want it, I want it, if I close it, I close it, and then I will open it again. So our stream does not need to have cue. It needs to have mix. Why is that? In my specific case, I need stream to be a 100% clone of my main, which is at the bottom. You see that main, okay? So what is main feeding from? Mix. What is stream feeding from? Mix. I'm not using a cue where I'm sending you some sort of different mix. For example, the song minus the bass guitar because the drummer wants to hear how the drums play with guitars, or vocals. They don't want to have maybe the keys. You know how cues work, right? They're made for the musician or somebody else who's tracking something. And they have a different request for what they want to hear and the balance thereof that you have. But in my case, I'm not using cues. I'm just sending you 100% the copy of these. Okay, so here at the bottom, as you can see, and I'm gonna hide myself for a second because here, and I'm gonna hide myself for a second because it's much better. You can see that there's main, mix, and there's a lot of things. There's listen for output, which we want because this is going to be our listen bus as well. We can turn the metronome on. We can use a reference level and set it if you just need to calibrate things. We can dim the volume here. And we have different monitoring for channels and things. I'm not interested right now. We can turn on the levels so we can see what kind of level the click has, if we use talkback, how it has to be, the listening, all these different things, which are really, really useful. The stream works the same way. Now, I'm not using the talkback, so I don't need to enable it, even if it's only for cues, but I usually disable it for you. The channels are A to B. These are left-right standard. I don't need to downmix anything, and the monitors are just monitors, so it's just left-right channels, very simple setup. What matters to me is that I have stream open up here, that I always like to have, and then I have main at the bottom. This is our control room in my case, my monitors and your stream. Okay, very simple. This is a volume knob if you want to use it to alter whatever your volume. I don't use that. I keep that at 0 and use my hardware for it. Now, what I need to do is I need to go to the inserts right now. So that's right. The control room allows you to instantiate inserts, plugins, right? Plugins as inserts on either of the cues or monitors or mains or headphones, you name it. Okay, so what I need to do is two things. I want my stream to be not too loud because I tend sometimes to run loud stuff and I don't want it to clip. So I usually run a -6 on the left and right channels. And you see I've just dialed a simple mixer delay. So default plugin. If you're used to Pro Tools, this is trim. Okay, very simple. If you use Pro Tools, this is trim, but it's called mixer delay. You can use any plugin. This is the simplest. It's -6 levels, no delays, no phase inversion, nothing. Go. This is all I need to do for stream. The other thing I need to do is I need to set my inserts for the room correction that I have. So here I use reverberate, which I hope I have. Yes. I mean, I do. I know I have it, but did it instantiate? Yes. So I'm gonna, for now, take this one, and what I need to do is I need to go to my preset bank and I need to load my correction V10B. This is what I use for correcting my speakers, and I need to just go these ones from an old profile. I don't have any difference in the left right. I compensated them already by moving the actual speakers, believe it or not. Yes, and this is how it has to be. I don't need to see this preset, the metering I don't need. I use these to correct my room. So the speakers sound different because my main is affecting the monitoring feed through these impulse response. And I use it in 0 latency, which uses more CPU, but avoids adding latency because I want to play my stuff while I am also correcting my room. So now I can save this and call it Intro to Cubase, which, as I said, is very official for sure. And we have my room correction for my mains. It's on my mains. It's not on the mix. It's not on the stream. It's only on my monitoring. So it's never going to get printed. It's super safe. It's out of the way. It's not related to any of the mixes I'm going to work with in the next year or so. It's always going to be about monitoring. That's why I like and use control room. Okay. But if you have a Trinov or if you have a Dirac, whatever, you can use those. If you have hardware for correction, you don't want to use control room. Maybe you want to just output there. So, that's good news because I can surface back here and we can take a look at the next thing. So my control room's done. Definitely something you need to do. Now, I have instruments, right? You know that. I set these up beforehand and I have pedals. And I have synthesizers. And if my pedals and synthesizers are not connected together, which I know most of you are here just for this specific reason, I am not gonna use Cubase. It's not a DAW I can use. I don't just use hardware stuff, but if I have a session, I also have hardware stuff. So it needs to be working. Now I'm gonna show you my setup. It's gonna be different from yours for sure, but I'm gonna show you why I do what I do, and my setup is not simple. So the good news is that it's gonna probably in some way reflect your setup. But the bad news is that it's not simple. So let's take a look at it. I promise it's not gonna be complicated either. What we need to do here is we need to set external instruments and we need to set external effects. Okay? What are these? External instruments are my synthesizers. External effects are my effects for real. So these are the pedals or the hardware that you have. Couple distressors, 33609s, Red 3, API 2500, PASIQ, whatever, things that you have that I don't have. And pedals. Mostly for me, this is pedals actually. And instruments are the synthesizers. So we're going to use the Bass Station 2 as an example, and everything's going to pretty much follow. We need to add an external instrument because my bass line here is, in fact, an external instrument. So we go add, and we call this Bass Station 2 because that's the name. You can use anything you want. Now, the Bass Station 2, coincidentally, is not stereo, is mono, because bass is not stereo. I'm sorry about that. True bass that hits you for galaxies and beyond is gonna be mono. So, but it just doesn't matter. My digression is useless because this is a mono instrument. So it has one output, that's it. So we give it one mono return, 0 stereo returns. Okay? I see some people are laughing here at the truth. So I am not gonna associate a MIDI device, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because once you go here, you don't have MIDI devices associated. Okay, so you can create one or add one that you've already added. But I'm gonna go okay, and right now all we need to do is take a look at Bass Station 2. It's got one return. It's got a mono output. It's not connected. Now this is where we tell our computer that audio device and device port 6. How do I know? Well, I've made mistakes for 2 years, and after a while I can record or recall half of the connections. Sometimes I still make mistakes because I haven't written them down. I'm that weird. But trust me, it's 6. So my Bass Station here goes to my Culture Vulture channel 2, straight into it. No excuses. And for those of you who keep count, I like it on pentode 1. It's set in a very weird way. It comes back out of the Culture Vulture into input 6 of the Aurora, and this is exactly why I've used record 6, right? Now, is there a delay that this instrument has? We could calculate that, I know for a fact that usually this is at 512 milliseconds, like the hardware delay that comes in there measures about 1.75 milliseconds. I could type that in or not. I won't do it right now, but I kind of know that. Do I have a return gain here? No, it's okay. I want to keep it at 0. I don't need to change the gain here. And do we have a MIDI device that is connected to it? Yes. So this, what I have done here, believe it or not, for Cubase shall not make your Bass Station work, because we've created an external instrument. We've told Cubase what audio device and port are to be connected to the return bus 1, but it's not telling what kind of MIDI device is there. Hello, Martin. You're welcome. Welcome. You're not late. So if we don't set these up, we'll be done for the audio connections, but there will be no MIDI being used. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, we go to MIDI device and we create a new device. Now I know you can see base station 2, but we're going to do this for the profit as well, okay? So I'm going to select base station 2, but I'm going to show you the Open MIDI Device Manager. We right click on this window and we give it always on top as well. Why am I doing this? Because the two windows, the external instrument and the MIDI Device Manager, are strictly connected because these MIDI devices have audio returns and MIDI channels as well. Does it make sense? I hope it does. Okay, so the base station 2 is done. You see it here. I can actually open the device, take a look at the channels and things it has. The important stuff is that my base station 2 is connected to base station 2. You see, finally, here we're connecting a device that we've created called base station 2 to a device that is a MIDI port. So the problem here in this specific instance is that you're reading a little bit too much of the same name. Base station 2, base station 2, base station 2. But these are three different things. The device is one thing. It's the bus name. That's a device that I've created in the MIDI. And then third is which kind of MIDI port I'm using. Coincidentally, they're all called base station 2. But one is a MIDI port via USB. One is a device, and one is a bus for an external instrument. Welcome to Cubase. But it's true. That's how it is. So we go to base station 2. Now, I'm going to close these for a second. I'm going to create these tracks. So finally we can do that. We have audio. I'm thinking we have audio. The base station 2 is freaking amazing. Yes, it is. It is absolutely amazing, Martin says. James says, it's no different in Studio One, to be honest. I need to do a compressed phase here and think. It is kind of the same, but I think there's an additional layer in Cubase of sort of like, Russian dolls, because Martin says, are you going to give it away next stream? Martin, you weren't here. For 6,000 subscribers, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I spilled the beans. For 6,000, I'm going to do another giveaway. And I'm going to do 3 prizes this time. I'm going to do hopefully a piece of hardware that I don't know. I'm, within the limits of my physical existence and spirituality. A plugin, number 2, and then a subscription to a famous audio tutorials website company that I've been working with for over 10 years. Hopefully, they don't know. I'm just making it up, and now I'm forcing them because it's live on stream. So I know my distressors are not gonna be for giveaway, but this is 6,000, which were like at 5,100 almost. So these dressers are nailed. I actually, for some reason, the screws don't come out, so I might have super glued them, with a red Loctite thread locker. Never use that anyway, unless you're, using airplanes or stuff like that. So now So we gotta keep, there. So it's super hard to take them out. So now we're gonna create the base station, the track. So we right click in this area, which I think even if you've never used Cubase, that this is kind of where the tracks are at, just because you see the ruler, right? And there's a loop set for no reason. I'm going to go right click, add instrument, and I'm going to choose an instrument. Okay, so stay with me. What instrument do we want to use? And here, let me move it up a little bit. We're going to see all of the virtual instruments that I have. UHI, synth, sampler, other, external plugins, drum. I thought I had more. All right, it's okay. Maybe some of them ended up. Maybe some of them ended up in blacklisting. Anyway, where is our base station? It's in external plugins. Don't ask me why it's an external plugin. It's a plugin referring to an external instrument. So maybe they are right. It's an external plugin. It's a plugin for an external instrument. So what MIDI inputs do we want to use? And I'm going to use all MIDI inputs, although we could say base station 2. This means that we can trigger this instrument from any MIDI input. What output do we want to have? You see here, there's no output. And no output left, right is what I called here in Studio Connection, the no output port. Okay, so we'll need to probably change the name of these because it's completely misleading. The event part is MIDI, that's okay. And the name, I'm not gonna name it because it's gonna inherit the instrument name. How many of them? 1. And now here we have our base station 2, 1, because it's just numerically incremental for Cubase. Okay, I know you're seeing things that visually are like, my Cubase doesn't color stuff so horribly. And I know, because taste is a weird thing. But I'm going to show you that one as well, because I think it's super important. So the base station 2 does not have a nice, GUI like, I don't know, like a virtual instrument per se, because there's no virtual instrument. It's just delay and return gain. So the delay is set to what we had here. In audio connections, external instrument, it's 0. And the return gain is 0 as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and play this and check if we've got our routing down. Okay, so I'm going to click on the routing here and you see no output, right? Now, this is because in audio connection, I made this guy no output. Okay, so maybe we should call these something else. So main out or default out, Now this is default out. So this instrument goes to default out, and default out is actually our monitoring. Hopefully not. I see the faders are kind of going up, so I'm thinking there's gonna be audio. Now, the safe thing you do usually is you take your synthesizer and you kind of slowly make sure your volume is at 0, just because. Then you play something, and let's see if these work. Let me put it on record so that the MIDI data is passed through. Right? And you're saying, I'm not hearing anything. So we go. So it's addictive. I could go on for hours, but I'm just going to stop here. It works. Okay? We can hear the bass station in all of its evil glory, and it works. So default output, instrument is created, everything's done. What have we achieved with these? We've gone through Studio Setup. We made sure our exact device preferences are set, all of the inputs and outputs for the hardware, the external clock, the naming if you want to change it, ports you want to keep inactive or active. Then we went to the MIDI ports and we made sure we had everything we needed. We disabled the ports that we don't want to show or use, and then we closed it. We went to our audio connections. We worked on the control room. We created an external instrument, and as I said, we made a default out that is not connected. This is again, welcome to Cubase. Why is this default output not connected? It's not connected. It says not connected. So if it's not connected, why am I hearing the bass station 2 to the speakers? Because it means it's connected. It's through the speakers. This is a main mix that our control room is pointing at to get the feed for our speakers. So this is how it has to be. It needs to be that you have a default output for your control room to take as a main feed and go to the IOs, to the streams, to everything we've said. That's why I created it, and I told you it was confusing at first, but without it, our bass station is not going to go to a default output, and we're not going to have a final track that we can actually use for printing as well. Okay. Now, we created an external instrument. We gave it the return port that this mono instrument has. We didn't touch delay and return, and we went to the MIDI devices, and we've created a device called Base Station 2 that we've linked to the external instrument and to the MIDI port of the MIDI device. So a MIDI device connects the MIDI port to the external instrument we've created, and we linked it through the MIDI device dropdown. Okay, now everything is interconnected. James says, I missed the external clock discussion. This is not clear to me. I actually, very simply, just said that if your system is clocked externally, you should check externally clocked. I have an Antelope clock. I pushed clock externally. Now, I have to say this. My driver, the control panel for the Aurora, clearly says sync source external. And this is because the hardware dictates what the remote control sees. So in my case, and this is probably why it's getting confusing, the device cannot switch from external to internal through the management that Cubase has, or any DAW for what matters. So for this reason, it doesn't matter if I click externally clocked or not. I just click it because it makes me feel better, but it's exactly what it is. So if the driver itself takes precedence over the actual control, remote control, which is my case, like the actual interface is dictating what the remote control will see. In fact, you see it's grayed out. I cannot change the sync source. So because the remote control, which is Aurora's own remote control, is unable to switch to external or internal, I need to do it physically from the card, there's nothing Cubase really can do. It will never know whether it's externally controlled, clocked or not. But I just go externally clocked. I think some drivers allow you to pass through the management of such clocking switch. And so for that reason, probably you want to go externally clocked, and maybe clock source will be not grayed out, and then you can change that. Probably your interface as well does not allow this kind of change. In fact, you say, I have an analog interface, and the clock is internal to the interface, so I set clock to internal in Cubase. Yeah, absolutely. If you want to clock it, if it is clocked externally because you have a different clock, then you type external clock, and you probably might be able to select a device. I don't know if it's a USB external clock, something like that, but this one is completely off what the DAW sees, so it doesn't matter. Now, are you ready for the next step? We put one keyboard in as an example. We should put one effect in. So how about a pedal? Maybe you don't have synths, and maybe you have external effects, like my TC Electronic M3000. That's not a pedal, but it's an external effect. Maybe you have it in analog. I have some pedals, as you can see. So what do we do here to set them up? We go to external effects, because it's an external effect, and we go add external effect. Now this is kind of similar to the instruments, but it's not the same. So I'm going to call this Volante. For example, we're going to make that pedal. And we have to tell Cubase what kind of configuration does the pedal has, So it's got a stereo in and a stereo out. Okay, so I'm going to say stereo, and I am not going to associate a MIDI device because it's got no MIDI device. It's not something I can play, okay? I could use program changes via MIDI. I'm not using it, so that's okay. There's no link. Okay, now we have the Volante. We have the send bus stereo prepared for us with the return. It's just not connected. Okay, so here comes my knowledge, your knowledge. You gotta know how your studio is set up. I know that my device port is 5 for the output and 6 for the output. So I am sending to the Volante from 5 and 6 of my Aurora card. Okay, so this is how my audio goes to the pedal. Now, much probably, in a lot of people's cases, you're going to have a return bus that is gonna go 2, 5, and 6. Probably the same numbers, only inputs, right? In my case, I told you it's complicated. I don't come back from one pair per pedal. So I am not gonna use any return bus. I'm just gonna keep it not connected, okay? I'm gonna keep the delay at 0, the send gain at 0, return gain at 0 for now, okay? And we're gonna create another external effects. And I'm gonna tell you why. We go out external, we call this 2-bus return. It's a send configuration for stereo, and it's a return for stereo. And again, it's got no MIDI device. I'm gonna go OK. And this is in fact actually the return of my pedals, plural. All of my pedals go into a summing box, a dangerous 2-bus, that then funnels my effects into one single stereo pair. So, like a mirror, the 2-bus return does not have sense, it's got just a return, which is input 15 and 16. Now, some people might say, well, wait, you used 15 and 16 for the control room. How can it be? We used output 15 and 16, which is USB play. In the case of Link's Aurora nomenclature, it's play is output and record is input. So now we're using input 15 and 16, which we haven't used. Don't worry about using stuff that is in use accidentally, because Cubase is going to tell you if stuff is already connected. As you can see here, it's easy. You can see it's in use, okay? So now what we've done is I've set the Volante up as an external effect. I've told Cubase that I'm going out to the pedal with 5 and 6, but I'm coming back from the pedals, plural, including the Volante, in my 2-bus return, okay? So the 2-bus return here that I use is set at -6 volume, okay? So what we could do here, because I'm pushing gain in a bit more than I want it to come out, so I'm using the gain to set it at 12 o'clock, which is -6. So what we could do here to keep unity gain with the signals we're sending through, yet retaining the analog sort of like pushing of the summing box, would be to put 6 here. Can I type it? Yes. Double click on it, type 6, enter. So this is going to add 6 dBs of pure digital gain after the fact that we've captured the take through the input, okay? The signal's coming through, whatever's happening, and then we give it +6. This will compensate the -6 that I have on my summing box. I told you why I do that. I like to push more effects into the summing box, a little bit more gain, and then come back -6 down, right? Effectively giving me a +6 kind of sound. But this is going to still be digitally -6. Told you it was not super easy, but your gears are going, I know. And so I might want to have a return of 6. Okay, this will compensate the analog offset with the digital offset. For now, let's not make our lives too complicated. Let's stay at 0, okay? We close this, and now we can create our effects. So I'm gonna go right-click, add effect track, and we choose our effect, which is gonna be external effect. If you don't wanna type, maybe you can type here Volante, maybe, boom, and Volante comes here, right? So you don't need to just do there. So, but now I'll go here, Volante, boom. Now, what kind of output do we want to have? For now, I'm gonna use default out. Do we want to create it inside a folder? Yes, because the effects are nice into a folder, so thank you for allowing me to do it. If you want to do outside, go outside a folder. But I'm going to go inside. We want to open one, create. And now you see the Volante is here. No? James says, this deep external hardware integration is what puts Cubase in the same league as Pro Tools. Yes, absolutely. It is a little bit complex, but that's I/O configuration in I/O setup in Pro Tools isn't easy by all means, but it covers every situation you might have in any studio you're going to build in any lifetime. So that's what you want to have. You don't want to spend 3 years saying, oh, I wish I hadn't bought this multi-timbral drum machine yet effects with 5 outputs and 3 inputs but MIDI and 1 output through but not the third one, because the DAW does not hear this. So I agree, it needs to be like that. So our Volante has delay 0, send gain 0, return gain 0. Don't freak out for what you're seeing here. Remember, audio connections, Volante, delay 0, send 0, return 0. These are just quick access sliders, okay? These here compared to the other one. Now, if I play and add a send to the base station, we're not going to hear it because we're going to send to the Volante, but we're not returning to anything. So I need to create a second effect. I'm going to go add effect track, and I'm going to look for 2-bus return. I want it stereo, I want a default out, I want it into a folder, and I don't want to use any name. Thank you very much. Now we've got our 2-bus return, okay? And as you can see, the 2-bus return, if I edit it, these are channel settings, stuff like that, we see that it also has delay, send gain, send return, return gain, all at 0, okay? Because it's just what the audio connections have. Now, the Volante pedal is going to be a send. These 2 cyan sort of sea green tracks are, as we said, these are effects, right? See, this is the color. So these 2 tracks are available in the session as hardware effects. Now, the 2-bus doesn't have a sound. It's just a return for us, right? But the Volante is an effective send. So for this reason, we go base station 2, we go to the mixer. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And you see here sends, the sends part. Now, the violet here, base station is the instrument we're using. I'm going to put Volante, effects 1, you know. I could call these just Volante and these just 2-bus return. I think it's easier. And here comes my send, which is, hello, Nix, welcome. This is my Volante send off. And I'm going to put it at minus infinite. Then I'm going to turn it on. And I'm going to put it at around maybe minus 10. Okay. Now I'm going to play the base station. And hopefully we're going to hear the Volante pedal as well. And in fact, I think you can hear it. Right. Now I'm going to turn the send off. Right. Okay, so I proved it to you that I moved the timing on the Volante and stuff, whatever preset that is, it's working, right? We can hear it. It's reacting to what I'm doing. So now what I would do is usually what I like to do, I'm gonna go back to audio connections. This is specific for all of you and your pedals. This is just my way of doing it. I usually send at minus 12 and I recover the gain on the 2-bus at about, in most sessions, actually at 24. So if I wanted to go unity gain, because I'm sending minus 12 to the pedal, I would go minus 6 on the 2-bus, making it minus 18. So I would need to go 18 on the return. But as you can see, I only have 6.02. So I cannot do a return there like that. So oftentimes, what I do is I load a plugin, and I could load a compressor bank. Don't tell me why I load compressor bank. It's just like how I've been doing it for so long. Compression to 1, no threshold, nothing to do. And here, through the generous knobs of Colin McDowell, we got 24. or we got 18. Actually, 24 is halfway. So we got 48 dBs of gain in that knob, right? So this could be minus 18. So again, if I do this, let me reset the sound so we don't have that crazy pitchy thing. You hear how loud 0 is to me. That's just how I set it up. I like to stay a little bit discharged out of there and then come into the pedals and minus 12, especially the Avalanche Run does not like line levels. These Strymons have 0 issues, but I still kind of like to stay in minus 12. That's how I've been setting things up. So I keep all of my pedal outputs to minus 12, but then I want to recover things. So how do I recover them is I just usually add from 18 to 24 of, gain to the output of the 2-bus. This is just digital, comes like that. James says, is there a Cubase version of Utility Tool? Yes. Alternatively, you could use Mixer Delay, which is essentially a trim for Pro Tools, as I said a little bit before when setting the control room. Unfortunately, this goes only to 6. So there's tons of plugins you can use. You can use just a compressor at 1, ratio. It will not change. Some people like to kind of compress a little bit the effects part. I don't do it. So you could do like a 1.2 to 1 or kind of a soft clipping approach. I usually don't like to do that. I want my effects to be really just breathing as much dynamic range as I can. So this again would put a problem here, which would be 1 point being not as high as the 18 dBs of gain that I need. But compressor bank does it, so it doesn't matter. Now I'm removing one because Cubase is very new. It's telling me, do you want to discard the changes? And I say, yeah, discard. And please just, remove these. Don't ask me again. So this is done. I don't need to set these to 0. Usually a minus 6 level or something is more where I hear it. And this is it. So we've got our instrument, we got our effects, and it's working. I mean, the audio tracks will obviously work because that's essentially what, we can set hardware points, we can connect it to buses, things like that. It's just the MIDI instruments and the external effects that are just the main reason why I need a DAW to be completely locked in. Speaking of locked in, who mentioned whether or not these things are syncing to tempo? Okay. Did we? Let me double check. Okay. So what you heard until now was that the Volante, for some reason, was conveniently clocking like the base station was. And this is kind of weird because that should not happen, right? Why is it happening? Normally, it won't. Cubase is going to have a tempo. Your base station 2, if you have one, is going to have its tempo. It's got a tempo knob that you can move. And the Volante has a tempo knob that you can move. But at least for me, it doesn't make sense to have 3 devices on different tempos if the song they're playing for is one tempo, right? And if it changes, they all need to change together. So how do you sync the clock of a session of something in Cubase to make sure your hardware synthesizers and your effect pedals are all in sync all the time, especially if you change a song and you don't need to go and adjust things or forget? You go to Transport, Project Synchronization Setup. So this is where you synchronize, this is where you set up the synchronization for your project. It's very easy. It's called Project Synchronization Setup. So if you have a source that is external and uses either internal MIDI ASIO audio device type or VST system link sources, this is where you set it up. I don't use external sources. In my case, it's the DAW that sets the tempo for the devices. All of them need to be synced in, okay? So we don't use sources. I don't have a source. It's gonna be Cubase, but I have destinations for sure. So here, this window, as far as I remember, cannot be extended. So we gotta live with what we have. We have a list of MIDI clock destinations, a list of parameters for clock preferences, and a list of destinations for MIDI timecode. So if your devices are using MIDI clock or MIDI timecode or both, or they're compatible with either, that's where you set it. Okay, look what I've done here. The clock destination is base station 2 dash base station 2. Why is there two names named base station 2? Because our audio connection setup for the external instrument has a MIDI device, base station 2, attributed to the external instrument, base station 2. That's how it is, right? Cubase wants us to know exactly what external instrument is using that device. And in this case, that's why these two names are the same, because I put them the same. Here you will put every output that you want the clock to be followed from. So who has to sync to Cubase? Now, very simply for now, I've done base station, and at the bottom here, I've done MIDI out 16. Because the output 16 of my MIDI interface, the ESI M8X, it's a name, goes to my timeline pedal, which then throughs to the big sky, which then throughs to the volante and stops. Because the avalanche run and the black hole don't have a MIDI setting. But the three Strymons are all in line going MIDI through one to the other. So my timeline gets the MIDI clock, passes it through the cloud, the big sky, and passes it to the volante pedal. And it all happens conveniently from one MIDI output, which is MIDI out 16. Now, there's a couple of things I want to do here. I always want to send start messages. Usually, that's how I work. But with the bass line, and if you have Electron devices, for example, when I had briefly here an Octatrack Mark II, it's actually different. No, the mono machine, I don't remember. Maybe we didn't even plug it in, and the Analog 4, same deal. So always sending start messages, it means that it will not use continue. So sometimes for my devices, I don't want to send a continue message. That's just because of how I like to use these devices. It's very simple. So if you want to use continue messages to drop things where they were, you can go start. But I don't build grooves that stay there live all the time. I kind of bounce them. So I want to make sure I have a complete restart instead of a continue. So that's just me. The last parameter here is send MIDI clock in stop mode is, to me, very important, because what happens usually is that when you press play on your DAW, MIDI clock gets sent. And there's sometimes the need for a bar or two of pre-roll to let the clocks sink in. And then you record, or then you play. You gotta give it a little bit for the clock to sink in. Now, if you use send MIDI clock in stop mode, Cubase will keep sending the clock to the devices. Even now that I'm talking, I'm not pushing play. That is what is going to happen. Okay? So the MIDI timecode destinations I've put here, they really don't use MIDI MTC. So it's just going to send MTC, but for whatever reason, it keeps working. So what I need here is just MIDI clock, as far as I know. But sometimes I've used MIDI timecode with the clock, doesn't interfere. It works, whatever. But just make sure you're using MTC if it's a MIDI timecode, or use MIDI clock if it's MIDI clock. You'll know because devices oftentimes have either one or the other, So just know that. Now the MIDI timecode can follow the project time, because with MTC, you can tell a device, look, we're at bar 32. We're not starting at bar 1 now. And your device, like a drum machine or a complicated arranger, can say, oh, okay, bar 32, I'm here. Let's go from here. So if you need timecode to follow the song time, project time, do that. I don't need that, so I'm okay. I don't use machine control, so I don't have MMC in master or slaves. But if you do, Cubase got you covered. It's here. And this is by far the most comprehensive setup for project syncing I've seen. Probably short of being Pro Tools on par with it. Okay. Because, yeah, I mean, there's tape decks and ADATs and stuff. It depends. There's complicated stuff, not just synthesizers that use MIDI syncing, right? So this is it. And this is why now I have 120 and my tempo on the bass line cannot move. I'm moving the knob and all I see is 120. Normally it would just go, And the same thing happens for the volante, that I don't know if you can see, it's actually blinking on 120. We could do an exercise. I could take these and go 240, or maybe, yeah, let's do 240. Let me see if it already changed. You see that the timeline is blinking twice as fast now. If you see, sorry, not the timeline, the volante is the timeline as well, actually. The timeline is the gray one and the volante is the golden one. If you look at their third switch, they have an LED on top that's blinking green, and they're blinking at 240 BPM. If I go 60, you see now they're blinking a lot slower. It took them a little bit to sync, right? I saw it, at least from the video feed, just a little bit. And now they're blinking at 60. So why is this happening? Because I'm sending MIDI clock information even when I'm not pressing play on the DAW. The reason for this is project synchronization setup, which is destinations here, MIDI clock, and then send MIDI clock in stop mode. That's, to me, extremely important. I want to have the clock being sent there. So now we've done the instruments, the effects, and the MIDI syncing in it. What is there for me, except for continuing to build the setup, what is there to say about a first run in Cubase? There's a couple more things that I would always advise you to do, which is go to project and go to edit, and go to preferences. Now, it might seem like a stupid thing to do, but to me, it's very, very important. What we want to do is go down here to VST, plugins, and if you want your plugins to selectively suspend, you should check suspend VST3 plugin processing when no audio signals are received. This is called plugin nap in Studio One. It's called sleep. I don't even remember. I have it in front of me every day. In Bitwig, the plugin sleep, or just the little half moon that you see, like quarter moon icon on the plugins in Bitwig, it will suspend the VST3 load when plugins are not receiving audio. This is awesome for stem mastering or just complicated setups that are sometimes in need of freezing. It will help you out because it will just deallocate memory data for your CPU to work better. The downside of this is that it might create some jumps sometimes. So some people like a system that is reliable and is always at maximum load. If it can't take it, it can't take it. They will work their session some other way, right? So this is one thing I would do. James says, I don't think that setting is good for overbridge, by the way. Oh, thank you for saying that. So there might be issues with Electron's overbridge. Yes. And there's plugins that actually don't like these anyway. Like the way they get back to awaken state may introduce, for example, glitches. So again, it's something you want to play with because yes, VST3 can deallocate itself or suspend itself and free some memory. So for some setups, some plugins, this can be good. If you're experimenting, you have different tracks, you don't need to freeze them all the time. But in other heavier sessions, some people prefer to have it loaded, and then if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Now, lo and behold, user interface color schemes. The first thing I would do here is set your focus color, the custom color scheme if you want, the area background, the cycled region, the grid lines, everything. Now, this is not how I have Nuendo set up, but it's kind of close. And as I said, I have a specific need for having focus color visible. Even if obnoxious, I need to know where I'm focusing. And I'm going to show you right away. If we go OK and we click here, you see the panes that I'm in. And that's the orange part. Make it a color that stands out and doesn't completely make your neighbors call the police. It's okay, just as long as you can see where you are. I guarantee you that's quite important, especially in other situations in which you have small tabs at the bottom here, like main inserts. You see how easy it is to see where things are, attributed to, probably. So that's one thing that I would do. Color schemes for sure. Then you go to track type default colors. To me, extremely important. I want my effects to be always cyan. My instrument, kind of violet, magenta, whatever. Sampler, MIDI, drum, adder, I put in gray because they are tracks that I will color myself need be or that I want to feel neutral somehow. Don't tell me why, that's how I do it. Audio can be set to anything you want. Can be white, can be, for somebody who uses Logic, there's that type of blue, gray blue that Logic used to use, which speaks audio track to me. I don't know why. It's probably the Logic ears that I had. That feels Logic to me. Pun. But audio here, I've put on orange. I mean, we could put it somewhere here. That looks like a Logic audio track giving me PTSD. So I'll go whatever, like orangish, brown. Yeah, it's okay. I don't put gold or other stuff because those things I like to add myself. But remember, that's a default. So that's what color you want your default track to have. It could be super white, could be light blue, could be whatever. So as long as it's a color that easily reminds you that it's a color, that's an audio track. The other very important track is group. And to me, groups are always green or dark green, being a bright green for the mix bus. For those of you who follow me, I use tons of groups or buses. In Pro Tools, they're buses. So they're auxes used as bus. That's the better definition. But I like the dark green going into the brighter green for groups. So default, green. And VCA for some reason is not doing what it should, so we're gonna set it together. Should be yellow. That's what it is. So now we're gonna save this in your own preferences. If you just wanna save these stuff you've done, you go to save marked preferences only, and you check the things you want to save in these profile or preset. For example, the whole user interface part, but nothing else. And you call these Alberto November 24 colors, for example. That would be it. If you want to save everything, you can do it like that. So as you can see, I have Alberto RS November 24. Okay, I created it today, this morning. So we're going to do the same thing. How do you override that? Well, you go save, and you got to have a good memory and remember that it's like this. So now, magically, this preset is taken. Do you want to override it? Yes. So now we have it here. And we can continue and keep overriding on it without losing what we've done. Because we go to the faders. So again, is it useless? To me, no. So these are the actual faders. You see the little one? There's a purple here, there's grays, there's a white one. These are the fader colors, like the actual plastic piece you would snap on the moving metal bracket, right? So for groups, I want green, VCAs, I want yellow, and then instrument retard, I want some kind of magenta, and then instrument, I want purple. Effect, sampler, input, audio. Honestly, I don't want these to be different. Some people might want these to be different. I don't use them colored because they are colored through the track itself. You see here, right? Purple for bass station 2, Volante, and 2 bus return. There's cyan. I don't need that different stuff. So that's why I have the others all gray, except for the outputs, which are white. If you want to have it, like, I don't know, maybe red, you apply, and should be here. Why isn't it there? Because that's a default user interface fader, which I have actually set differently because it's a color track. So if you want it red, maybe that will tell you that that's the final stage of that. So I'm just going to keep it here. Then we go to Mix Console section. Mix Console section is F3 here. So we go again here to Preferences, and then we take the User Interface Mix Console sections. These are all the sections here. What kind of colors you want these sections to have. The routing, the sends. Honestly, I don't change this. I like the orange for the sends. I like this kind of blue for the inserts. They speak to me like inserts and sends in Cubase and Nuendo, always been like that, so doesn't matter. But if you want colors here to be different, less distracting, you can do that for sure. You can even put your inserts to be gray, for example, and here you see there's pre and post fader. It's really well done. The hardware, for example, could have a different color. So that hardware stuff, speaks to you differently than something that is not hardware, for sure. The channel strip colors for EQ tools, gate compressors, limiters, I usually don't want them colored, so I put them in gray. And then the channel colors, this is very important. I want tracks, folder tracks, mix console channels, and colors to be shown for the selected channels with this much color strength, which I would say it's like maybe 25%. This will color all of your tracks. So in theory, you would have something like this. And I honestly despise this because I cannot look at just the top or bottom part of the mixer to identify the type of track I have. I need a color to be there. Maybe not super bright, but kind of there. See, you can make it brighter. You can go obnoxiously for the the channels for tracks and mix console, or the mix console channels themselves. It's a mouthful to say. So this could be it, for example, or a little bit more here, and it works. And it's stuff like this that will get your DAW to feel like home. I guarantee you that. Once the engine works, it's about feels. And, that's how I've been working for the past years or so. Metering is the next thing I would do. Look what I have here. I like my meters to have more than the usual zones, just because of how I work with audio and what I need to do, the formats, the loudness, the tracks. I like to have these. 48 to 24, I have these kind of middle dark cyan color. I have a darker version that goes from 48 to minus infinite, then it gets lighter, and then I have a very tiny area of minus 14 to minus 12, which is green. And then I have this kind of golden part that is minus 12 to minus 6, just because it's different. And then I have magenta for minus 6 to minus 0.2, and then once I reach minus 0.2, I'll see red. Because these faders in the channels have a plus 3, you see a lot of red, which is nice because your meter doesn't go to 0, it goes to plus 3. Digital, obviously, which yes, you can describe plus 3 digital because you have the bits, but it will not translate, obviously, to a digital to audio converter. So the other thing is you can customize everything here. Digital, DIN, EBU, the British, Nordic, K2014. You can take your time and just completely change the colors. I've done it only for my channel mixer, which is what the mixer here has. That's to me the most important. I need to have a clear reference to what is in the loud, what is in the ballpark. Being a minus 14 or 12, the ballpark. That's how I see if tracks are working when I'm mixing a record, like a real song. The minus 12 area in digital to me is very important because it kind of works about the nearness of a kind of a 0 VU, and then I push it up or down. And this helps me gain stage. Think about that. I don't know why or how. That's how I behave and work. So that's it. If you want to change the ballistics, they're here. So absolutely. I like the fallback of 12, but you can increase it, and so the fallback will be more dBs per second, so it will be more responsive or less. That's just about it. Martin says, I need to leave. Sorry, guys. Have an awesome stream and evening. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Martin. Thank you. We'll see each other soon. Soon. The other stuff in here really is so comprehensive and so personal that to me, it's not 100% what I would recommend you do on just your first run. But I guarantee you the things I've told you are, I just need these to be different. I cannot start a Cubase session or Nuendo session with things being default. The rest I can work with. For example, there's actually the last part that is to be mentioned, which is the shortcuts. One thing that I would recommend you do all the time is when you are using Cubase or any DAW and you default to muscle memory to a shortcut that is not working, you should immediately address such shortcut. Either you have no muscle memory and you want to build it on the DAW, that's okay, you just go remember what is being used, or you set it up. Now, some shortcuts I want to have all the time the same. For example, zooming in and out of the timeline to me is always Control minus or plus. Don't ask me why. That is to me how it should be all the time. So if I do it here, as you notice, it's not working, right? So it is not doing anything. It's not doing it. So how do we do it? Oh, that's easy. We go to Edit, Key Commands, and we edit this. We try and find where the zoom is, and we edit it here. Now, there should be a shortcut for opening Key Commands as well. Let me see if they put it in. Key Commands. So the first shortcut that I want you to set is the shortcut to get to the shortcuts. Believe it or not, that's how it should be. And I will do something intense like Control-Alt-Shift-K. Let's try this. Okay, it seems to be not in conflict with anything else. So this one, I want to be Control-Shift-K. You see, if I press it again, it doesn't go away. Maybe if I press ESC, yes, it goes away. So each time you want to set a shortcut, we go Control-Alt-Shift-K and the key commands open up. This is good. So now we need to find the zoom in and zoom out. So we try and go zoom in. So we got zoom in vertically, zoom out vertically. We got other things. Let's see if we find zoom in or zoom out. So we got H or G, which are the Nuendo shortcuts as well. Let's try them. G works. H works. You see how I'm zooming in the timeline, right? I don't like this. I'm not used to using G and H. I know it's kind of like a media sort of like development shortcut, but I would rather have K and L like on video editing, or as I said, Control minus and plus. So we go Control-Alt-Shift-K. We go zoom in, it's H. We erase it, and we go Control plus or equals and minus. And then we go zoom out, and it's G. We remove it, yes, and we go Control minus in this case. So now my shortcuts are set. Each time something doesn't align with your muscle memory for something you've learned, think about whether or not you want to adapt to the DAW or you want your DAW to adapt to you. Personally, because I work here by myself, I want my shortcuts to be mine, and I just cannot fathom using anything but Control minus or equals for zooming in and out. Maybe that's just me. That's who I am. Other things include cutting or setting loops. For example, this loop region here, I want the key L to instantiate the loop or disable it, enable or disable that. So we go key commands, see how fast that is, loop. So loop selection, Alt P, that's too much. I can't do Alt P. I want to use L. Now here it says is already used by transport, locate selection start. Do you want to reassign these to the existing? Yes, for sure. Just because I cannot, and it's not working. Why is that? Let's try that. Loop, L, loop selection. Oh, maybe because loop selection is used for actual clips. So that's not a selection, that's a locator. So let me see what shortcut it is. You see how many are there? Let's just hover the mouse here. Activate cycle. So loop is not actually what we had. It's activate cycle. Okay, so we go to loop selection. We just go, okay, remove. We can even set it to default. See, Alt P. Now we know that it was set locator, something like here, set left locator to project. Well, we don't need that. So we go activate cycle. Okay, or cycle. Preview cycle, cycle. Here it is. So we saw it. We erase this and we go L. Now there's no conflict because we removed the previous one. And now we have just the L to go here, right? Now, sometimes I want, the loops in Cubase are very easy to set. You see, I go L, I want this one to go away. That's okay. There might be other shortcuts here. It's easy to move it. We might want to set a loop to start on the playhead. There's a shortcut for it. Again, you go look for it and you're there. Record, same thing. Some people like, here there's an asterisk, but I cannot use an asterisk. I don't have a numerical keypad, but I still want to have a key that is fast. So what are we going to use? We could use F9, but F9 is already set to moving the actual tools. You see how they're on top, they're going. But I could use Alt and R, Control and R, or Shift and F9, for example. So something that is fast. Let's try record. Record, numerical star. Well, I don't have that. So I'm going to go Shift and record. Shift and F9. Do we like that? Yes. So here, Shift and F9, and I'm recording. Then I press spacebar and I'm stopping. Then I go Shift F9 and I'm recording again. Works pretty well. No problem. Nice. Now there's another thing that I constantly use in MIDI. Constantly use. It's retrospective recording. I don't know if any of you were thinking about it. That's another one. So if you go to any instrument and go to inspector, you'll see here that there's actually insert recordings, and then there's insert as linear recording or empty retrospective record buffer. Okay, so you have a track, you play something, you haven't recorded it, Cubase actually has, so you can recall that through retrospective recording. But the shortcut's not always super easy to do, so what I will do is I'll look for retrospective, and here it is, MIDI retrospective keyboard. Let me see if I can expand these. Insert from all MIDI inputs. So insert from all MIDI inputs means that you can play tons of keyboards at the same time, and they will all fill different buffers, and so they will actually fall into the all MIDI inputs. So Shift numerical star to me doesn't work because I don't have a numerical star on my keyboard. So what I'm going to do is I could do Control F9 or Shift F10. I'm going to do Control F9 just so that I keep it on the actual record, but it's not Shift, it's Control. And that one works for me. So I could play something. Let me lower these around. Let me see if that works. So we go Shift and F9 to record. And then we do, see, we have it. Then I go just play. Then I do random notes. And then I go Control F9. And as you noticed, I tracked something anyway. And here are the weird notes that I have inputted because I've just activated or triggered the actual insert recording as linear. insert as linear recording. You can insert it as a cycle when you have cycle recording, or you can empty the retrospective record buffer, which will empty the buffer. So this one is something I never do, and I would want to make sure that there's no shortcut for it that I can see here activate by accident. So look at how Control-Shift-Alt is convenient for us. It always goes to key commands. Little by little, while you're working on your stuff, you'll go and say, you know what? I wish I had a key for hiding all of the plugins that I've opened. I wish I had a key for maybe turning on the automation for this channel, or stuff like that. If you have to go edit key commands, it will be a little bit too slow. Sometimes you'll go, oh, I'll do it later. Doesn't matter. No, just open these with a shortcut, go there. And here there's tons of things that are set to numerical keypad that I don't have, and I want to have conveniently here. So, arrows, whatever, the arrow is moving the selection. Some people want it, for example, to move the playhead. You can do it there. As far as I just, think, everything that concerns a first start, and it's already a lot, to me is here. I would proceed to create the groups, the template instruments, but that's not a quick head start. It's not a quick start or getting your feet wet. That's actually me building my template. So that would be kind of chapter 2. So this is everything I have to say on install Cubase, open it up, and get the bare minimum of your studio setup to work. And I hope I was able also to explain the reasons why this makes sense to me. So if you have questions, things like that, type them now. I think we're ready to kind of do the giveaway. Only, I don't know, no, bravo, James. Oh, if you, James, have anything, because I think, James, you were, we were just talking about that, right, on Discord, that you said it would be awesome to have like a series of things. That would be awesome, of things that are not the basics, but like kind of the golden things that make Cubase, useful or like fruitful. Now, this is not that, but I think it's referencing to it in terms of what's the first gold, right, that it has. So what's the first gold that you're not aware you're actually walking on when you're instantiating Cubase? And I think this is it. The control room, the auto connections, everything, the colors, the meters, everything else is kind of not first step. If you can't think of anything else that you believe to be kind of there, I don't really think, there's the pan law that is just depending on what you do. To me, the pan law is minus 4.5. That's not equal power. So in this room, it's still minus 4.5. And I would change that. The FPS usually keep at 25. If I'm editing videos, I do, because I shoot in 25p. Sample rates, 24 bits, WAV files, broadcast, FLAC if you want. It's nice. You can record in FLAC right away, so if you're like space conscious. Project ownership, you could do, full name, and then you write, companies, fuse room, and then volume maximum plus C. I mean, things that, or like project locations, that's where the locations are usually use drive G. I'm thinking pretty much, the time offset would be kind of cool, for example. I don't know how you use that. But this again gets into, as a composer, what would you do? That kind of question. I like the offset to be 1. Let me see that. Yes. So I usually start with an offset. I don't know if you've seen what it's done. Let's see there. Project pan low, record here, blah, blah, blah. You get here. I want bar plus beats. I want offset, time offset, bars and beats. I like to have at least 1 bar before things start. I just cannot have my audio come in at bar completely 0. I will tell you what. It's actually maybe 4 full bars before the session starts. I have this comfort zone where I want my audio to not be, at the cold of the start. So maybe something like 4 full bars is really nice. And also you don't use bars that are positive. So you're triggering stuff from actually bar 1. You're not using bar 5, which is maybe not important, but I think this one makes more sense. If you're printing scores, then you have like the bar numbers. You don't need to dial offsets. That's kind of cool. All right, so how do we do it in drawing the winner? I have a couple ideas. Let me do that. So the first thing we need to do is we got to find the video. So, right. Okay, let me find that. Right. I can't believe I don't have the link for my own video. Here we go. This is my first step. Then, let me load it a little bit better here. All right. Okay. And then we gotta go to comment picker. All right. Can't believe we're doing this. Thank you, Focusrite, for sponsoring this. It's really cool. And here we go. Okay, so what we have here is 2 tabs in my browser. Okay, you probably followed that I have done a giveaway once I was reaching 5,000 subscribers. And if you're watching these now or in the future, you want to know whether or not you won. Okay, so this video is going to contain the actual picking of the winner, and I'm going to show you how it's done, because it's also very important that I demonstrate to you that this is 100% transparent. So there was a video here called I'm giving away a Focusrite Scarlett 2x2, on which you could have entered, or you could have, because at this very moment it's locked in. You could have entered your own comment. So by commenting into this video, you entered the raffle very easily. So this is the link that I'm going to use to pick one of the comments to make it the winner, okay? And the website I'm going to use is commentpicker.com, just because that's what it is, okay? So how does it work? I'm going to put the video here, the link. Look at the link here. This code here is the video, and as you can see, this is exactly the same code of this video. Then I don't want to add extras. I don't want to add replies. It's only going to be the main comments. I want to filter duplicate users, and I don't want to add extra entries or filter comments by words. I'm okay. I want to have one winner, and I want to show random names for a good 60 seconds. Are we okay with that? Yes. So it's going to be 60 seconds of just choosing stuff. Is it too much? I don't think it's too much. Then we have to enter a number here just to make sure we're not bots, or we're very smart mathematician bots. And we're good to go, I think. So we should get the comments. As a free user, I can only get maximum 250 comments. I think what you entered was about 60 or 50 and something. So if you think about it, 50 is not that bad of a chance, right? If there's 50 comments and one is yours, you have, 100 by 50, you have what? 2% of chance to win. That's kind of good, I think, if my math is correct, because I'm not a bot. So again, that's the video link. Look at the video link. That's the same one. You can double check. Then I don't want to use replies. I want to filter duplicate users, and I don't want to add extra entries, which I don't think that is even more. I don't want to filter hashtags, and I want to filter duplicate users, that for sure, because if you're a duplicate user, you're still going to have just one chance to win. That's the rule of how it was. Then I want to show random names for the animation for 60 seconds, and I'm solving this, so I'm getting comments. So it's 62 unique comments, okay, that are entering. So it's not 2% chance, but I think it's kind of good, all right? So here's the video chance of how it goes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to expand this, and then I'm going to press start. Are you ready? Go. So now we have 60 seconds to understand. You see how this is kind of a nice animation, right? Who is gonna win the Focusrite Scarlett 2x2? Very kindly offered as an endorsement by Focusrite themselves. We're gonna see it. These are all the comments that you typed in, and they're going randomly. And I think it's a nice animation. There was also like the Wheel of Fortune animation, but I like this one better. So 62 entries. We're doing it on 8th November, 8:25 p.m. As you can see, the video source is there. The giveaway details are these ones. And as I said, it's going 60 seconds. We don't know. It could be you, could be some other you, could be you watching these now, could be you somebody watching that one. So this is very important that you take a look at who won, because if you won, I'm going to tell you what you need to do. All right, so we got our winner. The winner is Plotry XM6ZK. That's legit comment, that's the user, and that's who won. Okay? So, thanks for hosting these, said Plotry. I would really love to get hands on such cool recording equipment. That's what you just did. You won a Focusrite Scarlett 2x2. Now, what you need to do, Plotry, that's how I'm going to call you. I'm not going to use XM6ZK. Plotry, what you need to do is you need to contact me. You need to use either YouTube or my website or my Patreon to contact me, okay? So it's very important that you write me either an email or you use the comment function. You use the contact user on YouTube. It's very easy. There's the option there. But if you can't find the link or anything, the video description will have my email address, so you can contact me through my email, okay? Now, once you write me an email, I will give you instructions on how to confirm that you are you. Because honestly, now anybody could type, right? I could get an email now to say, oh, I'm Plotry XM6CK, and I won, But there's actually a specific verification method that you need to use with me. So contact me at my email address or use YouTube. Do not use your comment section. Do not write in the comments of this video or any stream or any video. You gotta send me an email or contact me through the actual YouTube contact function. Once you contact me, I'll give instructions on how to verify that you are you. I know you are you, but I want to know you are you, okay, to validate your win. So this is how it works. And do that, and we'll see each other soon for the next giveaway. Because when I reach 6,000 subscribers, we are about at 5,100. When I reach 6,000, I'm going to just say it right now, I'm going to do another giveaway. And this time, when we're doing it for 6,000, I'm going to do 3 prizes. First prize, second prize, and third prize. I'm going to do a piece of hardware that I still haven't decided what it's going to be, a plugin as a second place, and a subscription to a video tutorial company that I have at heart, that I've worked with for so many years, that has a lot of amazing content for learning music production in general, okay? So it's going to be 3 videos, and it's going to be 3 entries. It's going to be 3 entries for 1 giveaway. That's pretty cool. So now you have everything you need to know. Plotry, you won. Contact me and keep subscribing, because once we hit 6,000, I'm going to do another giveaway. But there's going to be a video for it announcing the prizes and the video itself, in which you're going to have to comment to enter the raffle. So as usual, I cannot just say thanks. I need to really express my gratitude to the people who are supporting me, the companies, like in this case, Focusrite, who just put a Focusrite Scarlett 2i2 for you to win. Very kind from them to just support my educational initiatives and channels and everything I'm doing with music. I'm so glad and happy that they like what I do, but also that people like you are supporting my channel. This is very important. I have a Patreon if you want to join. For a little bit of money every month, you get a ton of videos, tons of content. You get a Discord in which we can chat, things like that, things that just let us geek out on the latest plugins. And you have tons of discounts. Because there's a lot of companies that believe in what I do. Lucky me, they do. I'm happy for it. I think I deserve it, but I'm also happy for it and super humbled. They offer academic discounts to people who study with me, currently enrolled students that are very, very good. So the money you pay for the Patreon pays itself back in buying plugins and things you need at a lower price. I know the offers are amazing, but I guarantee you we can oftentimes beat that. So thank you very much. I hope to see you on my Discord and Patreon. Ciao.